Welcome to another episode of Writing with Authors. I am excited to bring you this episode with a guest streaming in from Australia. I'm your host and three-time published author, Vincent A. Lanci.
Hi, and I'm Kim. I'm a published author from Brisbane, Australia.
For those of you new to the show, on this platform, I will interview writers in all forms to inspire you, the current writer or aspiring writer. Today's guest is someone I connected with on social media, and she has a lot of experience to share. She writes young adult fantasy novels and has just finished the release of her first published book called The Gilded Mirror. I found it awesome to learn that this was written in 2018 for the National Novel Writing Month entirely on her cell phone. First I've heard of that, so we're going to learn all about it. The second book in the series, which already has a scheduled release, along with another sci-fi series. She has a lot going on in the writing world, so it should be one or two tips for you. Allow me to now introduce Kim Barden. Kim, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Vincent. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you coming on the show today. Would you mind giving a quick introduction to our viewers before we dive in and get going?
Absolutely. So I'm based in Brisbane, Queensland, and I'm currently a published author with Shoreline Publishing. So thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. You've summed it up quite nicely. So I've just managed to release my first book in a young adult fantasy series based on dark fairy tales. So obviously everybody here has a little bit of nostalgia when it comes to fairy tales. You know, there's a lot of history that's tied with it and a lot of childhood. And I find the older fairy tales quite fascinating. So it was something that I really wanted to bring to life in a book, and something that was supposed to be one book has now turned into 5. And I just wanted to finish a novel. To do it on a mobile phone is entirely a brand new quirk that has just come with it. But yeah, it's a new journey for me, and I'm really excited for the series to come out and for it to unfold and see where it goes.
Well, congratulations on the early success. A series is always exciting. Similar with me. On this pandemic, I had written 3 books. One was published, but the first one is a mental health children's book, which I think is going to be just like that, turned into a series. So I had to put the brakes on that. But what else should we know about your latest book? Where can we find it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's available internationally online mainly. So booktopia.com, Dimmicks, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, Book Depository for everyone who uses that one out there. I personally love Book Depository. They give the best hardback books. But in Australia, you can find it at your local independent bookstores, and we also sell over in New Zealand too. So hopefully we can expand as that goes out. I've just managed to sell out on Booktopia, which is a really nice feeling. So just getting that kind of support and being able to grow this story and share that bit of magic with people has been it's been beautiful to watch unfold.
That's very exciting. I'm sure it feels good to see your hard work paying off. But let's think back a little bit. What led you to becoming a published author at first?
It feels like a really long journey and a short journey at the same time. I'm sure you would understand the process of it. You know, you just want to finish something. So for so long, I started writing books, and I only ever got to a certain point, and then I'd go back and I'd edit and I'd edit and I'd edit, and I'd never finish what it was that I started out to do. So I'm not sure if that's something that you've come across as well. So there's a little, well, I guess not so little anymore. It's a big organization now that's run online called National Novel Writing Month. For those of you at home that don't know what that is, it's a challenge that they have where the goal is to write 50,000 words in 30 days from November 1 to November 30. So what I did was I sat down and I planned out what my word count would be, which is somewhere between 1,600 to 2,000 words a day. And as you're aware, November is leading up to Christmas. There's a lot of birthdays on. You've got a whole bunch of other functions on. And the only practical way that I could think to commit to my word count was to do it on my mobile phone. So I did it on the bus on the way to work. I did it at the pub while I was waiting for people to finish you know, work, or at functions or at dinner. And at the end of that month, I had 77,000 words in the beginning of a series. But I think the biggest thing with it was the word count was probably my biggest motivation. And on top of that, I guess I read this talk, which has really, really stayed with me as a writer, which has helped me finish my books following on from that, is just keep writing. Don't look back. So when the little red line comes up for editing or spelling mistakes, ignore it, keep going. Because all of that can be fixed in editing. You just need to get the bones down first and you can build the meat and flesh from there.
Love the analogy. I could certainly relate to that. In the beginning of my first book, I'd be editing as I go, and then I'd be changing, editing as I go, and how much time I probably wasted editing as I go instead of just
Absolutely.
at the very end. That's a great piece of advice. But speaking of advice, what is 2 more pieces of advice that you can offer our community of writers?
Besides just get it down, it would just be to keep going. So just keep pumping it out, like even if you only get 50 words is 50 more words than you had the day before. And my other piece of advice is something that I guess I've taken with me in everything that I do. And it's, if they say no, it's the worst answer you're going to get. So if you ask, the worst answer you're going to get is no, and you're exactly where you were before. So rejections or not, which can be disheartening, but I sort of look at it in, I'm exactly where I was before I asked. So I'm no worse off. So I'm just going to keep going.
Thank you for emphasizing that. In this course of writing, course of entrepreneurship, there's a ton of rejections, and it's practice. Look at his practice. I got a good practice run. It didn't work. I'll tweak it a little bit, try to send it back out, sending messages to potential guests, connecting with you, a potential guest. I had to narrow down my offer. Why would you want to come on this show? And I'm glad you accepted, because it's been extremely valuable. Now, please share, how can our audience find you?
So I've got an Instagram page, so you can follow me at KE Barden Author. I've also got the same link on Facebook, which is also under KE Barden Author, and I've just started TikTok. So that's a new journey for me, as a lot of my readers are in the younger age bracket. So I'm trying to sort of connect with them on that front. And so far, it's been a semi-success. I think with everything that you do in entrepreneurship, you hit and miss until something works. So you can find me on there at Finding Ever After series, which is the name of the book series that I've just released.
Be sure to check out all of her great content. She's got great books out. You see her early success. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out. She is here to help. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Kim, for coming on the show today. And all of the listeners, thank you for tuning in. And I'll see you next week on Writing with Authors.
Thank you, Vincent.